Welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host, Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Rajeev Kapur. Rajeev, welcome on the show.
Thank you, Nitin. A pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all ours. So let's get started with who is Rajeev?
Oh, geez. Who is Rajiv? I am many things, I guess, but I am a father to two great sons, Sean and Nikhil. I've been married to Mina for 22 years. I am excited to be running my third company called 1105 Media, which is a B2B media and marketing services company, primarily in the tech and enterprise space. I'm a Southern California boy, born and bred. I learned how to speak Hindi by watching Amitabh Bachchan movies. So there you go. There's all that. And I'm a pretty laid back, chilled guy that just, wants to have fun all the time. So you can probably tell from my office here, you got
Mhm.
you got James Bond and Yoda and a lot of other stuff, Laker stuff, So I guess that's me kind of in a nutshell.
All right, well, let's have a little more fun today.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you for having
Awesome.
me.
Well, great to have you here. So tell us more about 1105.
So 1105 is as I mentioned earlier, is a B2B media and marketing services company. I am the CEO of the holding company, and within the holding company, there are five other companies, and all five companies report up to me. And then we have typical setup of shared services of HR, finance, IT, and all those things. But effectively, what we do, our job is to connect buyers with sellers in the B2B space. So we're not B2C. We don't do really anything in the B2C space. Our job is to get the buyers at companies around the country. We are 99% US based, to connect with the sellers of everything from analytic products to AI to enterprise cloud solutions, you name it. And we do that across the federal government space, the education, K through 12 higher ed space. We have a business that does cover the infrastructure facility space. And then we have, two businesses, one that covers primarily the Microsoft stack, part of the house, as well as a business called TDWI that focuses primarily on data analytics, education, and training. And the way we do that before COVID, I should say the way we did that before COVID was about 40% of the business was face-to-face events. So obviously COVID happened and those events disappeared, just like you can't go to a basketball game or you can't go, to a movie theater. So we had to pivot, of course. The other 60% of the business, there was a small print component to the business. About 7% of the business was print, and the rest of it was digital marketing and media services. So everything from doing marketing services, whether it's web development, type things, all the way up to lead gen programs, and then running digital marketing campaigns for folks in the B2B space. So that's 1105 in a nutshell. We have about 136 employees across the US. We have 5 offices, although that's going to be soon down to 4 offices, because I think we're taking the stance here that we are going to be slowly over time reducing our office square footage. What I found is that I could probably run 95% of the company with just my laptop or my phone anywhere in the world, right? I think a lot of people have found that. So we're going to be reducing our square footage over time. And our Seattle office, for example, we're going to be reducing that and, just be putting some people maybe in the small WeWork. But most of the people are remote anyway, so that's fine.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been one great revelation from this pandemic, right? We can be anywhere and get more work done, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I don't know if I don't know if the office situation will ever completely go away. I think at some point, for example, our Seattle office probably will come back, but at a much smaller footprint. But we're going to try it out for the rest of the year and see how it goes. I think some employees, I think you lose something in the culture space when you don't have people the ability to get together, and meet and face to face, and Zoom gets tiring. I think a Zoom fatigue sets in. So look, I'm not a big believer of going completely like, officeless, but I think we'll have office space, but not nearly as much as we have now, and be maybe a bit more on a voluntary type basis potentially, and
Yeah,
coming back in.
I agree. The jury is still out, but I think a hybrid is probably the best fit where you still need to, I'm a face-to-face person. So, and
Yeah.
we talked about doing this in person. So that's my preference. But there is, I think, at least you know, that this cannot be done if you're remote. That is no longer the case.
Yeah, I think, I think we learned a lot the last year. I think we're going to continue to learn over the next 24 months in terms of how best
True.
to manage people and how leadership needs to change over the next 4 or 5 years as more and more Gen Z and millennial come into the
Mhm.
marketplace, right? So you're talking about people who have been connected to social media since the day they could walk, almost, right? So
Yeah,
so we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the course
true.
of the next few years.
I'm curious about the name. What does 1105 mean?
That's a really good question. People always ask me that. I wish I could tell you it was some sort of real crazy, like awesome story, but there really isn't. I can just tell you that, you know, uh, well, one of the founders, one of my predecessor, one who helped kind of put the company together, his daughter's initials were MCV, or well, not were, but still are MCV. And in Roman numerals, MCV translates to 1105.
That's
So
awesome.
there
That
you
is
go.
the
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
A lot of people think, oh, did you find it at 11:05 a.m. or was it November 5th? Or no, no, no. It
That-
was. Yeah. Were there 1,104 names prior? No, it's so. Anyways,
Hey, it's a cool name. I like it.
thank you.
Tell us what's the
Well,
biggest challenge. Sorry, go ahead. You were going to say something?
no, no, no. Go ahead.
So, as you look at 1105 and the various portfolios you hold, what's the biggest challenge you're facing as of right now?
It's interesting. I think if you were to ask me this question a year ago today, I
Mhm.
would have told you that we just lost 40% of our business because 40% of our business was face-to-face events.
True.
What do we do? So what did we end up doing? We did pay cuts, we did
Mhm.
furloughs, we did layoffs, we did what we needed to do to survive. We pivoted from face-to-face events to virtual. We were one of the first companies to do that. I mean, last year we probably put on a couple of hundred virtual events, ranging anywhere from summits to and if you count webinars,
Mhm.
we did probably over 1,000 webinars last year, up about 13% from the previous year.
And these are
And
not
this year,
just any webinars. These are, I mean, you have, why don't you talk about the scale and size of these? I mean, you do some
yeah,
pretty big
I,
events.
yeah. So I'll answer that in just one moment. But I
Sure.
think uh, so that would have been the question, like, what do we do? I mean, we were a little bit of deer in headlights. It's a shock to the system,
Yeah.
right? So, but we figured it out. We pivoted successfully. We had our second best year ever. We have an incredibly strong balance sheet, probably one of the strongest positions we've ever been in as a company, believe it or not, in the history of the company. And this year started out fantastic as well. Our Q1 numbers, we're on track to beat our Q1 budgets. We're on track to beat our Q2 budgets. And conversely, we're probably going to beat the budget for the year and continue to do well on the balance sheet side of the house. And so if you ask me, what's my biggest challenge right now? Well, what's the thing that I'm thinking about over the next 6 months? It's what happens when it's time for face-to-face events to come back?
Mm.
When can face-to-face events come back?
Right.
The challenge is this: face-to-face events are a much lower margin than virtual events, right? A face-to-face event is probably in the mid 50s in terms of gross margins. A
Mhm.
virtual event, you don't have coffee expense, you don't have
True.
hotel expense, you don't have all that other stuff to the so those margins are much higher. And so that's one reason why we've been able to do so well, is because our gross margins went through the roof last year. And so what keeps me up at night, I guess, if anything does, and usually nothing really does, is mostly just how do it not now. It
Mhm.
was, what are we going to do without face-to-face events? Now it's going to be, what are we going to do with face-to-face events? And how is that hybrid model going to look? So we've completely swung from one end of the pendulum to the other end of the pendulum in a year. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that there's still going to be some challenges out there in terms of travel and entertainment budgets. I know are not there right now, right? I think so. I don't anticipate face-to-face events to really come back until next year, And even then, I think they're probably going to be about 20 or 25% of 2019 levels. And so I think it's going to take probably 3 or 4 years for face-to-face events to get back to 2019 levels. So there's still quite a bit of time. So it'll be interesting to see. So that, I think that's probably the biggest kind of question out there right now.
It's quite a conundrum, and it's a very interesting perspective coming from an industry expert. I did not realize that was, it's an interesting question to be looking at and considering. So it is a challenge. Let me flip the sides, and on the other end, what is the biggest opportunity you're looking at targeting right now?
So one of the things we're getting ready to launch, we're going to be launching it in the middle of May, is we offer marketing services to brands, right? So if we do everything from lead gen campaigns to banner campaigns, to email campaigns, we this year will probably send out over 500 million emails on behalf of our clients,
Hmm.
right? So we're pretty good at those things. But one of the things that we decided late last year, one of the things I challenged the team on was, look, we are not quite a full-fledged agency,
Mm-hmm.
right? And one of the things I try to tell my team is, like, we got to think more blue ocean here instead of red ocean.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because at the end of the day, lead gen type programs tend to be a little bit commoditized. And so it's how you can add value to those campaigns that really matter at the end of the day. And so one of the areas we're pivoting to is that, and probably in the next 6 weeks, we're going to be expanding our marketing services capability to offer full agency capabilities.
Hmm.
So in the past, a customer would come to us for certain campaigns, but then go to somebody else to do maybe do social media or search engine optimization or whatever the case might be. What we want to be able to do is say, okay, we'll also offer those programs to you as well. And since we have the customer relationship, hopefully we'll be able to get a bigger share of wallet from that perspective. So that's one big thing I'm excited about. We're also exploring some other avenues within our government business. We think there's an opportunity to continue to expand. Even we have a podcast business in our facilities infrastructure space that does well. How we can expand that. But in terms of product areas where I think the growth is going to come from, I think there's a lot happening right now in the cloud sector as well as in AI and analytics. So I think those are the areas where you're going to see a lot more continued growth in terms of just from a vertical product perspective,
By the way,
category perspective.
congrats on the turnaround, and kudos to your leadership for having the vision and foresight and continuing to look 6 months, a year, 2 years ahead, because that's where the growth comes from. So congrats.
And I appreciate that, but really the credit goes to my team. I've got a phenomenal management team. I think one of the best in the industries, and they're just fantastic, and I'm so proud of them. And when COVID first hit,
Mm-hmm.
there was probably maybe 24 hours of, what do we do? Like, oh my God,
Yes.
So, but they pulled it together, and they've been rock stars ever since. And so we've done well. But I wouldn't be able to sit here right now and tell you that we did well by myself. I have a great team, and that they deserve all the credit.
Well, that's another strong quality of a great leader, right? Sharing the successes as much as anything. So again, congratulations to you and your team. Tell us
Thank you.
a success story or even a lesson learned on something that you thought may not work or did end up working, but left you with some good lessons, and maybe share one or two of those with us.
So yeah, I mean, look, I think if you look, you're talking about 1105 or just in my career in general?
Well, anything that has stood out to you, that has stayed with you.
So what's interesting, for me was I think one of the best stories, biggest experiences I had was probably back. So I was an executive at Dell for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and in 2000, Michael asked me to go to China,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, initially I was like, why? What did I do wrong? Right? you know, so and we talked about it, and he said, listen, China's going to be our biggest market opportunity. It's also our biggest challenge. And, I don't want to give you something easy. I want to give you something hard, right? You always want to stick your best people on the hardest things. So I think that was a lesson I learned early on, which is, look, I think most people look at building a business and then, oh, let me just have the next bigger thing, right? And I think the real test of leadership comes from saying, all right, you were able to turn around this one thing or fix this one area, and you were able to really fix and grow that. Now I want you to go do it again somewhere else, right? And those are the areas where you really learn about yourself, you really learn about the business, you really learn about the market and the opportunity that's out there. So that was really exciting. So we did that. And the first 6 months when we were there was a real challenge. It was a real struggle. You're in a new country. You don't speak the language. This was 2000, by the way. This was before the whole world moved to China. Right now, the whole world's in China, right? And China's got maglev trains and just amazing infrastructure, and Disneyland China, whatever, right? So you get all these great things happening in China now, right? So as long as challenges, but it was a challenge, right? And so for the first 6 months, it was really probably the most difficult time in my career. And the reason why it was so difficult was because I was making no progress, zero progress. And what I found at the end of the day was, listen, what really found, I woke up one morning and said, you know what, I can't change China to fit Dell. I have to change Dell to fit China. And I think that's a challenge for a lot of people, because I know a lot of people, for example, are saying, well, gee, the NBA, LeBron James got in trouble because, or Daryl Morey got in trouble because, whatever the case might be. But the bottom line is that if you want to do business in China, you got to play by China rules. You just have to. It just is what it is. Doesn't matter what it is. You might not like the politics. You might not like the culture. You might not like what they're doing. But if you want to be there, you got to play by their rules, right? And the question then is that, how can you affect change? And the way you affect change is you get in there and you show the employees there what a great culture is like, right? And so that's essentially what we try to do is, all right, how can we affect change? And we need to do that. So Dell, as you know, is a direct business model. Sell direct to the customer base, right? Well, in China, it was mostly the reseller. And so we eventually ended up building a hybrid model and helped kick that off, and others took it and ran with it after I left. And we went down to Singapore, and to do a new opportunity down there with Dell. And so we took it, and now Dell in China is doing fantastic, and the team there is just doing an amazing job, right? So I think that is probably one big lesson, one big takeaway. I think the other side of this is that, if you look here at 1105, 1105 is a private equity backed situation here, right? But it's not a typical private equity situation, right? We are from a fund that closed in 2000. We're the last acquisition the fund made in 2006. I've been here for a little over, I've been here almost 6.5 years. The company came with a lot of debt, and it came with a ton of print products as well. When I first got here, the business was about 35% print. And what you had to do is you had to say to yourself, wow, this is a private equity situation, but there's no money to do any acquisitions. So what do you do? So everything we did, we had to do on our own. So it was a true turnaround. And, we made the change that we needed to make in the management team. We changed out, I think 70%. I changed that over time, changed out about 70% of the management team, restructured our product lines, and kind of built on some of the early success the company had under the previous leadership. And, we've been able to now pivot, and we've got incredibly strong digital products. We've got, before COVID hit, we had strong event products. And even on the print side, the small print that we have left, we went from 35% print product now down to about 5 to 7% print product. We improved our gross margins, right? So really, you got to remember, you can't deposit percentage points in the bank. It's really about the margin dollars at the end of the day. So we just have to figure out how to continue to drive those margin dollars and really become a cash generating machine. And we did that. And I think, really being able to turn it around and really being able to be in a world where, there is no safety net. It's a big challenge, right? So like I said earlier, the other big takeaway here is that, you're only going to be good as your team.
True.
And so, being able to change out that team and make, I didn't make all the right decisions on that. I had to go through a couple of different CFOs to get to the CFO we have now. And, we made the change we needed to make, and, knock on wood, that the things continue. Hopefully this year continues to go well, and we have good momentum going into next year, and let's see where it goes.
Well, I'm sure. I'm confident in your leadership, and sounds like you're very confident in your team. So, hey, if you got past something that no one had foreseen and you came out stronger, as they say, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Yeah.
So Rajiv, let's switch gears and talk a little more about you. Right? Let's get to know the person behind the persona.
Sure.
And the way we want to do this is through a series of one-line life lessons, things that have come to you or you've adopted over your journey and that have come to shape you and define you. So I would put it back to you and say, share maybe 5 of these one-line life lessons with us, and I'll be all ears. And
Yeah,
so will be our
so so
audience.
so that's great. I'm glad you do this, and I've listened to some other folks, some of my other friends who you've interviewed as well on your podcast, which are phenomenal, by the way. I think they do a great job.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of, I kind of blur the business and life side of things, right? So, I guess the number one rule I learned in business, was hire people smarter than you, give them the tools to do their job, and get out of their way,
Yes.
right? So that is probably, that to me is the number one rule in business, period. Um, you know, the other one I would say, another one is you have to really figure out what your why is. And for the longest time, that then I
Mhm.
wasn't sure what my why was. I think you go to work, you do your job, you run companies. People say, well, the why is really more purpose based, but I don't think you can have a purpose without a real passion. And it was really kind of finding out what my why was. And for me, my why became find ways to honor other people's dreams.
Nice.
Right. So that's something that's a life lesson that I live by. Another one I love is trust in the magic of a new beginning.
Hmm.
I love that line. I
Yes.
love that because sometimes people get worried about making a change in leadership. Sometimes people worry about making a change.
Right.
Maybe they got to move somewhere.
Mhm.
But there's always a magic. To do that. Uh, you know, a lot of people I've been asked on these types of things, what's my idea of a perfect day?
Mhm.
I think that's just too big. I don't, there's no way, there's no such thing as a perfect day. I think to me, what I want to be able to do is just move the average up a little bit every day.
Hmm.
Did I move, did I make myself a better, person, father, leader today? Am I slightly better today than I was yesterday?
Yeah.
That to me is 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 um, is the idea of a perfect
I
day. And
love
then I
that.
guess,
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess I don't know. I guess I have one more, right? For me, I think it's you know just remember that your path is not written in stone,
Hmm.
right? It's there's no predetermination here.
Right.
You're working on yourself never ends, and it's I think it's those people that really wake up in the morning that say, what, I'm gonna I am going to make learning an addiction,
Hmm.
right? I'm going to read, I'm going to investigate, I'm going to learn something new. And I think those are the core things. And then at the end of the day, you got to have courage in your own instincts to do those kinds of things, right? So there you go. I think those are kind of the core 5 or 6 things that I think are important that I think are important to me, that I hope can be inspirational for others.
I love I love all of those, and I also love how they come around and take us back to where we started. That you are an action-oriented but fun-loving person, and these lessons, have those elements and those tones that you want to keep improving day on day, but at the same time not get held up with these unnecessary, bigger chunks of, oh, I have to do something just because. So you
Right.
have a good sense of the why, and then making sure that you're progressing day after day.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, people, no one can anticipate what hurdle is going to come their way tomorrow,
True.
right? Whether it's in life or business. But if you have the right mental fortitude,
Hmm.
you can overcome anything thrown your way. You
True.
just can, right? So don't turtle, don't put your head in the sand. Face it head on, right?
True.
And you might have to get out of your comfort zone, but if you're going to be amazing in life, you can't do it in a comfort zone. So
So true. Rajiv, this has been a pleasure. It's been an excellent discussion. I really appreciate you taking the time to
It's
come
my
share these
pleasure.
with us, and would love to stay in touch and continue to have an eye on how your journey is coming along, and would love to get you back on the show at some point. And yeah, thank you.
No, thank you very much. A pleasure to be here. It's an honor, and congratulations on everything that you're doing there with Pretham and everything. And I think that's awesome. I think you're a true, you and the folks there. I know some, you and I know some. Obviously, I know some same people there on the board there that are doing a great job with you. So I just think what you're doing there is awesome, and the giving back. So good job. Congratulations.
Thanks, Rajiv. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.